Hello and welcome to the Free Outside Show. Today is a bonus episode with the nicest and most talented guy. He's kind of the combo. And breaking news on where he signed as a sponsored athlete at the end. He should have been sponsored for a long time. And if you want some hope that you could be sponsored and the trail running industry is just missing you, I can't believe that they missed this guy for so long. We have David Sinclair on the podcast. We're just going to get right into it. We're releasing a bonus episode this week because I've just been alone on a lot of Thanksgivings, and I think it can be a hard holiday sometimes to travel for. So if you need something else to listen to, we're going to do an episode today and Thursday or Friday. I'm not quite sure which day I will put it up. To support the show, just like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. That really helps. And we have a Patreon, patreon.com/freeoutside. Okay. Here's David Sinclair. He just broke the record on the JFK 50 miler, which has been around for like 60 years. He beat Hayden Hawks, Jim Walmsley's run the race, Zach Miller, Adam Peterman. He set the course record by 10 minutes, which is insane. He ran an incredible race. He's got it dialed in as far as what works. He's a ski coach. He might go to the Olympics in 2 years. He's really an incredible person. Just want to put this out. There's a lot of good insight and stuff in here, and I want to thank him for doing an interview. The guy deserves everything, and hopefully he can get some more notoriety and blow up, I guess. So some breaking news, I guess, at the end. We're pretty good at doing that. I've actually had people I've interviewed reach out and ask me to take out things because they revealed so much good stuff on here. Okay, with that, here is the incredible JFK 50 miler course record holder, winner of the Rut, winner of Speed Goat 50K a couple times, 216 marathoner, just really good guy too. Here's David Sinclair. All right, welcome David Sinclair to the podcast, fresh off the JFK 50 win and course record. So just want to throw out a few random names: Hayden Hawks, Adam Peterman, Jim Walmsley, Zach Miller. You have a time that's like over 10 minutes faster than any of them. How does that feel?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks, Jeff, for having me on. It's just kind of been a little bit surreal, honestly, the last couple days since JFK. That race has just so much history. All of like the who's who of ultra running in the U.S. has done it. I was kind of in awe the night before the race. They give you this little booklet, and it has the 50 fastest performers of all time, all the names of the winners over the years. And I'm like looking through this, book, and I didn't know that much of the history of the race before like getting down there. And I was like, wow, like so many people have proved themselves. And going into it, I knew I was in good shape. I, wasn't totally discounting, having a shot at the course record, but I knew it would take a like totally perfect day to get close. So I definitely surprised myself. And yeah, feels pretty cool to be up there with those, legends of the sport.
Totally. And so going into it, and most races in general, you've done amazing at everything from like the Rut to canyons to Speed Goat. Do you have time goals or do you race to competition?
I think maybe in the last year or two, I've like started to think a little bit more about time goals, but generally like when it comes to race day, like the main focus is like, I like racing. I like head-to-head competition. I think it's, pretty hard to compare like, year to year. You don't know what the trail conditions, some of these mountain races that I've done too, like the course seems to change every year or two. So this course at JFK like is, pretty much the same year to year. They tend to have really good, like stable, cool conditions. So I think it is the one that you can compare times year to year, which, makes it all the cooler to get the time. But I was, a goal was to, do whatever it takes to win the race. And then, just icing on the cake to be able to get a course record.
Totally. And so it starts out and it sounds like you and Eli kind of moved to the front. Was the goal just to run off each other for as long as possible and then see what happened? Or did you start thinking about breaking that course record at some point with him?
Yeah, so I'll get into my approach was that I knew that he was pretty fit, and just from like some of the things he'd said, like there was an article that he was in where he was like totally focused on getting the course record. So I knew that I wanted to win the race, and that meant I probably had to stay with Eli. So we went out on the road in a big pack, and it's we're moving well. There were probably like 10, even 15 guys, up at the front for the first 3-4 miles of the race. And then as we got onto the trail, Eli and myself and Ryan Sullivan kind of got a little bit to the front. So we were taking turns working together on the AT. I was feeling like maybe a little more comfortable on the like the rockier technical downhill section. So I wanted to play to my strengths. So every little techie downhill section, I'd take the lead and, just like find that narrow line between like pushing it, seeing if I can make the other guys a little comfortable and a little uncomfortable, and like get a free second here or there. But then I made sure to like not push too hard to do any damage to my own legs because it was so far to go.
Yeah. Do you keep track of like heart rate, or is it all by feel throughout a 50 miler like this?
Like I come from the Nordic ski background where I grew up wearing a heart rate monitor for every session, and then have used heart rate monitor training like during races. And I think it's a good way to go. This training block, I haven't worn a heart rate monitor at all. So I was just more going off feel and like my breathing, just perception of effort. So I made sure to like just keep it as relaxed as possible. It's kind of was constantly going through my mind. Like I got 50 miles to go. So every step trying to like conserve energy, be relaxed, not tense, get through that, especially like the techie parts of the AT, like feeling smooth and efficient was the goal.
Totally. Yeah. And it's a really unique race because you literally do a shoe change in the middle from like trail to road. Do you think not having a title sponsor or obligations at that point was like really helped to pick whatever shoe you like to do, or just go by conditions type of thing? Because you did, I think the Merrill and the Nike were your two shoes.
Yeah, it was nice not have an official signed sponsor. I'm totally locked in yet. I think there's a lot of great companies that make good shoes, and I made the decision the night before actually to go with the Merrill shoe because I'd been using it on like the super techie like AT and East Coast trail running. Some of the mountain running stuff this fall and really liked it. So when it was snowing, like we drove over like where the AT went and checked out the trail, and there were like 2-3 inches of snow up high on a Friday night. I was like, okay, like in case it's really sloppy, I want a shoe with good ground feel, really good traction. That's, light and nimble so I can play to my strengths. So I decided just the night before to go with the Merrill on the trail. And a bunch of the other guys like Eli and Ryan, I think we're both in the that new Adidas like trail super shoe, which I haven't never run in, but just seems like, it's really fast, but has a lot more cushion and is a little unstable at high speeds on the rocky part. So that's kind of how I made the decision to push the downhills a little bit more, just to make them uncomfortable. And I knew I could probably safely get downhill. So we ran together for like the first 13 miles. And then there's like that 2 mile, like by far the most technical section is the Weaverton Cliffs down to where you do the exchange and then get on the towpath. And I pushed pretty hard just to get like a 15-second gap down that climb. And it ended up being really good because Eli with his triathlon background just erased that gap and then came out in front of me, even though I thought I had a pretty quick transition into my road shoes. Yeah, so I ended up being right like with him, but like a little flustered because I thought I had a gap and like, could take my time. He came like sprinting by me. How did he change his shoes? I like thought I had a few seconds on him, and then I like, didn't have time to like do the whole plan for the exchange. Like I forgot to drop all my my old flask off and ended up dropping a couple gels, like because I was just so flustered, and I knew we were about to get on the towpath and I didn't want him to have a lead going into that, so I just kind of chased him out of there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's so funny because it's still 50 miles, but it's like the most frenetic interchange where it's like triathlon level of throw shoes on and sprint out of there. And I guess his triathlon background probably helped.
Yeah, there's like a pretty good video clip of actually both of our transitions, and he comes in and just like slips his trail shoes off, and then without even touching the laces, slips his road shoes on. And I didn't put a clock on it, but it must have been 4 seconds, and I probably did like 20. I like sat down on a wooden chair and like yanked my shoes off, and then I had to like lock down the speed laces on the road shoes I was using. I thought my transition went well, so I was shocked that he was able to put that much time into me. And
what does it feel like?
Much, we're talking 20 to 30 seconds in a over 5-hour race, but at that level, every like free second counts, and especially for getting on the towpath. I thought my plan was to try to like just hang with him as long as I could, and he ended up being a great pacer. Like, I don't know what was going through his mind. I think he was just super focused on like going after that course record, but we got on the towpath and he just went right to the front and was charging like every mile around, between like 5:30 and 5:50 pace for that first like 10, 15 miles on the towpath. And I was like, yikes, this kind of hurts. Like, we're going really fast, but I also wanted to run like reasonably fast. So I figured if I let him go, I'd be working just as hard. So it was nice to like turn off my mind and just cruise behind him. I tried to just stay like one step behind him, catch a little bit of draft on the towpath.
Yeah. What's it feel like to transition from fairly technical trail and trail shoes to super shoes and the road? Is it a really weird contrast for your body of springing forward? And it's just very unique race in that sense.
Yeah, I'd never done anything like that, which is such a like a stark transition from like, technical, big downhill, rocky trail to like totally smooth. It's a gravel path that you might as well be running on a complete road, like doing a road marathon. So it felt pretty weird at first. It was my first time trying to run a pair of super shoes, and they felt
Your
really
first
good.
time running in super shoes was during the race?
Yeah, I guess I got them on Tuesday and like, did a few miles on them, just test them out. I was like, oh, these feel really good. I think I'll go for it. In the race, it seemed like, pretty much everyone in the last 5 years that had done well, or, all the winners, I think, had been in, had used some sort of super shoe for the towpath thing. So it seemed like I would be giving up time of it and at least try that. And yeah, I was pretty surprised, like having not run them before, that they feel really good, at those paces running on a gravel path. The first 10 miles is probably the hardest just because, you're like, using your muscles slightly differently. I was feeling like a little tight and like my calves and my hamstrings as we started running. So the first like 3-4 miles, especially, hitting 5:40 pace felt like this is hard. Like, there's no way we're going to hold this. And then I actually felt like, after a few miles, I kind of got in the groove, was able to relax a little more. And I was like, oh, it feels easier all of a sudden. But I looked at my watch and like, we are still running the same paces. So yeah, it takes a bit of a time to adapt.
Yeah. And do you have a nutrition plan out there? Like, what do you plan out what you're eating per hour, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's one of the big changes I've made this year. In the past, I, had struggled in some like later in ultras and long mountain races where I just like couldn't get calories down as I got tired. So it was something I prioritized in this training block, is to do like all my faster long runs. I was like practicing, trying to increase the number of calories per hour. So I ended up doing most of my calories were like the cyst gels, and I had it written out a whole plan like beforehand about, how many gels I wanted for each section of the course, and tried to basically just keep fueling every like 15 to 20 minutes, pounding a gel. But it's totally different type of race. So that was like the plan, that if everything went really well, I could do close to 500 calories an hour. But I always knew like I'd have to listen to my stomach, and if it felt like too much, I'd back off a little bit.
Did you get there? Did you get there 500 calories an hour?
Yeah, I didn't do that. I think if I'd eaten everything, it would have come out to like, 2,500 calories of gels, or plus like a little bit of sports drink over the, little over 5 hours of running. I ended up with that fluster at the Weaverton Exchange. I dropped 2 gels out of my bag. So I came up a little bit short, but I ate everything else. And yeah, the nutrition plan seemed like it worked like a charm.
Yeah.
Maybe I just got lucky because I know Eli had issues, but yeah, it's definitely the most detailed plan I'd ever have for nutrition and ultra, and also like the fewest issues. I felt like I was able to digest, pretty much every calorie I ate out there.
Totally. Yeah. And what does it feel like when you know you're going to win and break the course record? Are you stoked? Are you almost like, wow, now I have to be in front of all these people and break the tape and have attention? What does it feel like coming into the finish? Are you just ready to like go home and be done running?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll go back a little bit here. And so I was running with Eli and just saying like, okay, we're running fast. I'd intentionally not looked too much at the splits. Like I think I'd checked what Jim Walmsley and Hayden Hawks and Adam Peterman's like splits were at the end of the AT. So I knew we were like a little bit down on Jim, maybe a little bit ahead of Adam and Hayden there. And then I just saw like the paces that I was running with Eli on the flat part of the towpath, and knew that, okay, like if we don't blow up, we're gonna be, in that range. So pretty much it was just like, think about, okay, be as relaxed as possible, because if I can avoid a blow up and a big slowdown, then I knew like I'd be in the ballpark of getting a course record. As they're running on the towpath, I was just, conserving energy. I didn't know any splits on the towpath, but we went through the second major cruise spot. I think it's like mile 27 and a half. Someone told us we were 5 minutes up on like Hayden Hawks time there. So I was like, okay, this is good. Like Hayden closed really well. I knew like it wasn't in the bag at that point. So then we just kept running. I went right back to the front after that. We got our nutrition and kept running, and like resumed running, around 540, 550 pace. And I was just planning, okay, like at that point I wanted to win the race. So I was just going to let him keep leading as long as possible. And was starting to think, like, if I'm still with him, feeling good in my mind, at the end of the towpath, when you hit the pavement, there's 1 mile that has a big climb. I was like, that's going to be, if I'm feeling good, where I'm going to make my move. But then right about mile 36, I could tell that like we did 1 mile that was like, 6:03. And I was like, okay, he's starting to slow a little bit, but being behind him, you get a little bit of draft. You can kind of turn your mind off. I didn't want to go too early, knowing I still had, 13 miles or something to run. And then we ran another mile, and it was like 6:15. And I was like, this is feeling like pretty easy all of a sudden. So I was like, he's slowing down. He must be hurting. It's now or never. I better just go for it and like try to keep the gas on. But I wanted to have a shot at course record and make sure I knew like Matthew Seidel and Ryan Sullivan were not far back. Like we were getting splits that they were only a couple minutes back. So I didn't want to wait around too long. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
When I went, like it was really fun running in the lead, because we had a lead bike about like 100 yards behind. The guys from Mountain Outpost were like, riding a bike behind us. So I knew we were on the live stream. So I tried to make like a hard acceleration. I figured Eli was hurting. So I like dropped it to, like 520 pace for a minute, just to like make sure he couldn't go with me. And then I just tried to settle right back in. And as soon as I dropped him, I was like, okay, this pace is feeling a little bit harder. I don't want to slow down. So I just tried to keep like every mile sub-6 without trying to push too much. And then once we hit the road, I checked my watch. I was like, okay, we have a little over 8 miles left. If I can do 6-minute pace, I've easily got the course record. So I hit that hill and ran the hill as hard as I could, then kind of settled back in, just trying to keep it under 6-minute pace. Maybe I could have pushed a little bit harder, but I just knew like I don't want to cramp. Like you never know when you're going to hit the wall. So I just kind of tried to find that line between absolutely going to the well and making sure I wasn't going to have, any cramping or like total implosion and have to walk it in. So it wasn't really until like 2 miles to go that I was like, okay, I'm definitely like going to make it finish line feeling good. And those last 2 miles, I just opened it up and like gave it everything. You have so much adrenaline at that point. Just, felt so good, because you just, you're going to win the race. Like, you got the course record. That's a incredible feeling.
Is this the best race you've ever done? Run or ski, you think?
I mean, like everything's different, but I think definitely like up there. And I would probably say this is my best performance of all time. It's, it's pretty different than something like, Speed Goat or some of the other ultras I've run. But,
totally.
I would say it's my best performance ever.
And this isn't really new. Like you've been on the top of the podium for quite a while. Why do you think it's taken so long to get noticed or sponsored?
I mean, I'm like not a super social guy. Like I don't like the spotlight all that much. So I've like made the choice to not seek it out too much. I kind of liked, for most of like the last 5 years, like my my main gig was like working at Sugar Bowl Academy, like being a ski coach and a teacher, and like on the mental side, like not being completely all in on skiing and running in some ways like made it a little bit easier that there wasn't any pressure. So this year was like I made the Skimo national team, and it just felt like the right time to move on and like try for a year or two to like go all in on the athletic side. So I think the biggest thing is that this year I like just decided to, okay, like I'm just gonna, I'm 32, like who knows how many more years I'll be, performing at this level. I will regret it if I don't try to go all in and get the most out of myself for a couple of years here.
Yeah. And it's worked out. Like it sounds like things are coming together just like you'd envision.
Yeah, I mean things are, going really well. Like, maybe if you just watch my results like in the ultras this year, it hasn't been as perfect as it might have looked on the result side. It was the move back to Vermont was pretty hard. With just all the life changes. So after Speed Go, I was pretty beat up and had so much more time this year that like I was trying to do more, but I also like didn't fully recover from Speed Go right away. So I went through a pretty rough patch in like August and September. Ended up having to take like 2 weeks pretty much off and then like totally reset. But it's been like a crazy trajectory since since that I got in the shape of my life here. And this result seems like by far the most like media attention I've ever gotten. It may have just been because like my favorite and best events in the past have been like these kind of like 50K mountain events, which a lot of like the media attention in the sport right now is on the really long stuff, and then also like a little bit more on the sub ultra scene. So the 50K mountain races are probably not the most like media attention, but they're the ones that I'm really about on.
Yeah, I got to see you win the rut in 2022, so I think I got to see the impressive feat out there.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a cool race too. I was actually hoping to do that one this fall, but ended up getting a little injured and was just too tired at that time.
Yeah, have you and Michelino ever raced? Because it would be pretty fun at the rut.
Yeah, I think we have never raced at the rut. We've raced a few times at like Broken Arrow and Speed Go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first big races I did was I went out in like 20. I don't even remember the year, but one of the big snow years for Broken Arrow, we both ran the 50 when it was a 5K, like absolutely brutal course. And I think Hayden Hawks like won in the course record that year and just totally spanked us. But Mikey and I ran like literally like the entire 5-hour race within a minute of each other that year. I think we were like together on the first lap, went through. We were both hurting on the second lap. I was like hammering. I think I got a minute ahead of him. And then like I remember the last climb, we were like crawling up on the snow, and I could see him like 30 seconds behind him. We had like 5 miles of downhill to go, and I was just like running my heart out, trying to hold on a second. He ended up running me down that time in the last mile. So he's gotten me a couple times. I think I beat him once at Speed Go. I beat him a few years back at Broken Arrow again, but where we ran like the first lap together in the lead. So we've had some good duels, but yeah, it'd be fun to race him at the rut again.
Yeah, we can't call it a specialty anymore because with JFK and all the other stuff you've done, but I think it's like the most impressive is watching you at those very mountainous 50Ks. And yeah, it would be really fun to just see a duel between you and him at the rut, and just the live stream they got now. We could just like really see you guys send it on the downhills and wonder how you have no fear.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fear there, but for me at least.
Yeah. So I want to dive into one other thing before hitting on some skiing stuff. But when you decide to go all in on sort of your career, seeing what it could be, how do you go about that? Do you just leave your job and then do you start reaching out to potential sponsors, or how do you change your life and chase that thing?
Man, it's if I knew the answer, that probably would be going a lot smoother than it's gone. But it was the main impetus probably was that I had just kind of like started dabbling in the ski mountaineering racing and just like absolutely loved it the past couple winters. So after making it work like in a busy like coaching season last winter to get to like the ski mountaineering nationals in Utah, I had some good results there with like 2 second places and a 4th place at the nationals. And then USA Skimo actually reached out in the spring, and then invited me to like one of the World Cups in Italy. And I was like, wow, like this is cool. Back when I was a Nordic racer, had kind of been like a goal of mine to, get to the level where I could get some World Cup starts. And I never quite got there on the Nordic side. So when the opportunity to be on the Skimo national team popped up, yeah, especially with all the attention, like it's going to be an Olympic sport next winter, I was like, I should, go all in on, being an athlete for a year or two. But yeah, I still trying to figure it all out with making it work financially.
Mm-hmm.
Scariest part.
Yeah, because there's very little overlap in, well, maybe there's a couple big name brands, but a couple overlap in like Skimo to trail running. How are you chasing sponsors on both sides? Are you trying to make a life that includes both? Because it's very unique in the US. It's very common in Europe, but not here.
Yeah, I think it's just the running side has evolved a lot where, there are some athletes that are actually like, making close to a living, on the running side. There's a few brands like maybe La Sportiva and DynaFit, I think, actually make like Skimo gear. So there might be a couple athletes that have kind of like a dual running Skimo sponsorship. But as far as I can tell, on the Skimo side, there are essentially no athletes in the US that are like fully sponsored or like making any money at it on the Skimo side, just because it's such a niche sport. Like there aren't that many people in the US that are buying like Skimo race skis. So I reached out to a couple companies, and the best that I can do is get half price skis at this point.
That's so sad. I mean, you're so talented.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe it'll come through eventually, but it's so I'm chasing the Skimo stuff just because I'm passionate about it. Not there's no money in it for me at this point. I'm gonna be like funding my own travel to get to some World Cups in Europe, and buying my own gear on like pro deals. But it's fun.
Yeah,
that's kind of like where I'm a little torn, because I'm really passionate and like want to chase the dream. There's if everything went totally perfectly, there'd be a slight chance I could get the Olympic spot for North America at the 26 Olympics. So I'm not completely ruling that out, but also right now there's like some potential to actually like make a little bit of living and make a little bit of money on the running side if I can keep having these kind of like A-level performances. So I'm a little bit torn between like, do I focus more on the running, which I really enjoy, and there's a little bit more sponsorship potential there, versus the skiing, which is more like just a passion project.
Yeah, let's take money out of it. Since you are so multifaceted, what is your dream life if you could make enough doing it?
It changes every few weeks. I just really love like what drew me into mountain running is I just love being, out in the mountains, and most of the people that I've met in the sport are just like so positive, so incredible, like the kind of people I want to surround myself with. And the same goes for like skiing. I don't think I could just like be 100% focused on, running year round. I really like the diversity of being able to run, being able to ski, being able to bike a little bit. I wouldn't have made it if I didn't love the sport. So I make sure to make time in my training to do the things that like, I'm passionate about, whether it's, chase some random FKT or go out on the mountain bike or just do like epic days on skis.
Totally.
I love it all and like thrive on some variety.
Yeah. What are like your biggest goals? Like, is it getting to the Olympics or like winning Western States? What are kind of the peaks of what you could do in each sport?
Yeah, those are goals, but I want to chase them. It's motivating right now. After having some success in the ultras here, like part of me's like, oh, I should, Western States look so cool. Like I should, go all in and try to move up to, 100-miler and see what I can do there. But then other time, like, yeah, the Skimo dream of like, really going all in, seeing like how close I can get to the Olympics. Like I won't be upset if I don't make the Olympics. Like, it's mostly about the journey, not about the end result.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit more on this, because I'm just curious, could you even train for like a golden ticket race while in the midst of a Skimo season? Like, is that possible to be prepared on the start line of a golden ticket race?
I think I could do it and be prepared. This is like a thing that I'm thinking about as I recover here and like need to make a decision on pretty soon because, I know Western State's going to be totally like loaded with maybe the most competitive field ever this year. So there's like part of me with this success running, like I should, strike while the iron's hot. Like it'd be really fun to compete with all the best in the world at 100 miles on the running side. And I'd probably, have a lot of learning to do. I might get just completely spanked the first time, but part of me wants to try and get a golden ticket. So like thinking about either the canyons or like Black Canyon to chase a golden ticket, but then it's just like a little bit of a conundrum because then I think I could do it and run pretty well, but I don't think I could run at 100% of my potential in one of those golden ticket races while trying to schemo race. And I also think doing the running training might, it might work well, but it also might like, leave a little bit on the table in terms of schemo performance, especially because in the US with the Olympics, the emphasis right now is on like getting really good at the short relay event because that's the one that's going to be in the Olympics and has the pathway for the US to actually qualify for the Olympics is all about the mixed relay, which is, like an 8 to 9 minute effort, like with transitions and downhills in it. So the physiology is definitely a little bit different than a, 15-hour.
Yeah. Is this an important winter for qualifying for the Olympics as a country?
Yeah. So this winter is like, I haven't even read the details, but there are only like 18 spots for men and 18 spots for women in the 2026 Olympics for skimo. And all they're doing is the sprint event. So like the really short 3-minute one. And then the mixed gender relay, which is like, the female goes for like 8 to 9 minutes. The male goes for 8 to 9 minutes. And then you repeat it. And so the major pathway to actually secure an Olympic spot for the US is that we would need to be the top country on the World Cup in the mixed relay for the Americas. So like Canada is one of the big competitors to earn that Olympic spot. So right now on the US team, there's like this kind of energy. We were just at our skimo camp out in Aspen to kick off the season. Like we need to work together to all get better at this mixed relay so that we can do well in the World Cup this winter and like be beating Canada to secure the spot for the US. And so given that we actually secure the spot by having some good results this winter as a country, then the US OPC would decide which like one male and one female actually got to go to the Olympics to represent the US.
Wow. So you have to be the literal best in the country.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because right now it's like, okay, we all got to work together and make each other better. And we were doing a really good job, like learning from, the veterans of the team and all trying to perfect our transitions and figure out the strategy. But then I think like come next December, if we have earned that spot, there'll be a little bit more competition.
Totally.
Among the team to see who's actually going to get that thing. So I just want to be, part of the journey. It's fun. I'm learning a lot. All the other men and women on the skimo team are like incredible people. Pretty much all the coaches and staff are like doing it out of passion. Like none of them are getting paid anything. They're just giving their time so that we can chase this Olympic dream. So I just hope, someone from the US makes the Olympics and like, definitely in 10 years, I think skimo is going to be a totally different sport with like, kids that were starting in like their, teenage years and like the level is going to be completely different because most of the national team right now are people like me that like picked it up in their late 20s or something.
Yeah. Well, I want you to tell us about one specific sprint that Jeff told me about at national champs where you had some tough transitions and maybe your ski fell off and you still won.
Yes, I don't know. Last year I did make it to like Solitude, Utah, which was the skimo national championships. And the last day was like a pretty wild day up there. There was a little bit of a snowstorm. So there was fresh snow. I'd never actually raced a skimo sprint before, but how it works is they, you do a qualification round and then they do like these heats with 6 skiers in them. And the top 2 keep moving on all the way down until you get to the final 6 skiers. And then how it works is the 6 skiers start, you kind of like sprint up, do a little zigzagging around diamonds for a couple of minutes. You have to stop, put your skis in your backpack. You do a boot pack as fast as you can for, 30 seconds. Put your skis back on, finish skinning to the top, at which point you stop, lock your heels down, double rip your skins off, and then you go around gates on the way down. So the whole race takes, from 2.5 to 4 minutes for a lot of the best in the world, depending on the course. And I'd never done it before. Transitions were something I'd started figuring out, but literally like just practicing by myself on the hill or like, in my apartment at night, I had kind of no idea what I was doing and had never done it under pressure before. So I don't even remember. There's a video of it, but in the semifinal, Jeff and I were in the same heat, and at the boot pack, I think my like ski fell off, or like I started to run or something and like left my ski behind. So I lost like 5 or 10 seconds, and I was like, oh no, it's only a 3-minute race. Like for a second, I thought I was completely out of it, but I, was able to reset, get my skis back on, and I can see the top of the hill, and like, Jeff and a couple of people are like way up there, and something that came into my brain. I was like, don't give up. It's not over. And I was able to just like summon the best sprint of my life to like close the gap. I kind of like muscled around Jeff, I think, at the top transition, and like ripped my skins off, and like was able to get out there, get on to the downhill, maybe like, just a meter in front of him. So then it came down to the downhill and was able to make it into the final. At which point, another like Arthur Whitehead, one of the top U.S. skimo like sprinters and relayers, I think I may have broken his pole, and then his ski popped off in the final. So there was a lot of carnage that day, but I ended up second at the nationals for the sprint.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, do you think it's that grit that makes you so good at these really tough races too?
I mean, I like to think I'm gritty. Maybe everyone thinks that though. Like, it's definitely a talent. I'm pretty tough, but at this level, I think everyone's really tough. It's been fun being back east where, the weather here in the winter is not always as nice. I think probably like growing up here and like skiing and like, rainstorms and all the ice definitely is something that shaped me and gave me a little bit of grit.
Totally. Yeah. And I think just West Coasters don't really know, but you're the perfect person. So describe the difference between West Coast trails and East Coast trails, especially like Northeast.
Yeah, these Northeast trails, like especially like Vermont, New Hampshire, I've done a lot of running, is just like they're completely different. They're so wet, they're so rocky, they're so rooty. There are wet leaves in the fall. It was a bit of a shock after doing most of my running and like the nice smooth California trails the last 5 years. So coming back here was an adjustment. Like I had to totally recalibrate. You can't worry at all about pace when you're running on something like the Appalachian Trail in the East, just because it's just such slow going. You have to be so careful with every step, because one wrong step, you can, roll your ankle. It was always fun running a lot more technical trails this fall. Felt like I was, had to relearn it a little bit, but I've really gotten my groove back on some of these more technical trails. Part of what like got me really into trail running. I love it. The variety and the the different styles of running. It's fun to do it all. But part of
I feel like
got into trail running was in college when we were training for skiing at Dartmouth College. What we did every Sunday in the fall was we'd go run a like 12 to 18 mile section of the Appalachian Trail. And so that was like my first foray into trail running, was just our Sunday training runs to get ready for ski season, and like absolutely loved it. But the technical trails definitely beat you up. I remember it was like late October every year, like half the team would have a swollen ankle because the leaves would fall and you'd catch a foot on a root and end up having to take a week off, because kind of dumb maybe in retrospect, but we love running trails in college, and that's like where I really got into the sport of trail running.
Totally. And I feel like out west, everyone talks about like grade adjusted pace, but out east, it's so much like terrain adjusted pace. Like it might be rooty or rocky, and it's not even how steep it is. It's just like you have to use so much energy finding even footing to move fast, that in the west, you can just like kind of put your eyes up and even see the view.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in running in California, I had a bunch of climbs, and one of my metrics often that I'd look at would be like, okay, what was my grade adjusted pace? And on a lot of that trend, like it is actually fairly comparable. So I found some like climbs in Vermont that I was using a lot this fall, and be like, just don't even look at the grade adjusted pace because you're gonna think you're like completely out of shape.
Yeah,
You'll be
totally.
1 or 2 minutes slower in your grade adjusted pace if you look at the Strava compared to a nice climb out west. And that's even without like considering that you're at low elevation instead of, you know, 7,000 to 8,000 feet out in California often.
Totally. Yeah. This fall, like on a normal week, how do you how do you structure your weekly training? Do you like take an off day? How do you do it?
Some good questions. I think growing up with ski training, one of the things we did religiously was like every Monday was just like a totally off day, or, it wasn't always Monday, but pretty much all skiers like to take
Hmm.
a day off, and just, it's a safety valve. It's something I'd kind of gotten away with in the past years, especially like working as a coach. I'd be like, out coaching, 6 days a week. And then I'd give my like high school athletes Monday off. And I'd be like, all right, like I don't have to coach today. I'm gonna just like totally go out there and just like do a huge day when the rest of the athletes are taking an off day. But I found I got just like crazy tired earlier this summer with like just having more time. I think I was trying to do a little bit too much and wasn't recovering well. After I like got a little injured, took a total reset, like 2 weeks pretty much totally off. When I started back up in like mid late September, I made a promise to myself that I'm gonna take one day off, or at least like not worried about training,
Hmm.
where like I'll get out the door to go for like a little hike or a little jog, but it's not focus on training. I'm just doing things to recover, taking a mental break. And I think that was like the switch that went from like I was like trying to grind it out and just not recovering, not having any good workouts. Once I started doing that this fall, like I just felt myself getting fitter and fitter every week. So I think some runners are a little loath to take a day off because they feel like, they need to get out there and do as much mileage as possible, but like worrying less about the mileage, especially running more on these East Coast trails where you can't like, sometimes it's hard to do a 15-minute mile, even though it's flat overall terrain, have been two of the big differences. So focusing on
Yeah.
recovery, taking a day off almost every week, and then, a little bit less focus on mileage.
Yeah. And do you plan out your training ahead of time, like a week or two out? Or yeah, how do you even structure your training in general? Like where do speed work, intervals, how do you think about that side of it?
So I've been like self-coaching myself essentially for, the last 10 years, which I mean, I've learned a lot from, being a ski coach about like, physiology and what works for most athletes, and have just done a lot of experimenting with myself. But it's definitely true that we're often, better coaching others than we are coaching ourselves. So I've had my fair share of injuries and get a little greedy and try to overdo it a lot. So definitely the things that I've had to focus on this year, like with more time, like being a full-time athlete, I've had to pick my battles, remember when to back off a little bit. So I'd like to have like an outline. I don't
Hmm.
write down like a detailed plan going forward, but I have like just general principles that I like to try to follow about like, how much volume I can do, like to make sure I'm getting at least two like intensity days every week.
Yeah.
I said I've been one day that's just fully focused on recovery, generally one or two longer runs a week,
Back to back or spaced out?
usually like spaced out, but it depends on the week and just how well you're recovering. So I think once or twice in this like whatever last 2 month training block, I think I did two back to back long runs, and they definitely seem to work, but you have to be careful with them. Just depends
Yeah.
how you're recovering. So I don't like to have a set plan, because if I have too set of a plan, I'm going to stick with it, even if my body's not cooperating. So I like to just reevaluate every 2, 3 days, have a general outline of like the priority workouts. So maybe like two harder workouts that I want to do and a longer run. And then everything else there is just trying to fit in mostly like easy aerobic volume.
Hmm.
so I can keep the training volume up, but still capitalize on those like intensity days. So generally this fall, it would be like Mondays were an off or easy day. Tuesdays, I might try to do like speed work, but on like hilly terrain. And then since I was also training for JFK, I hadn't done a lot of super flat speed work in the past, but knowing I was going to run, essentially 35, 36 miles of like dead flat, fast terrain, I added back in a lot of flat speed work. And I went back to a lot of the workouts, like threshold type stuff, marathon pace type stuff that I had success with back when I trained for some flat marathons a bunch of years ago.
Yeah. What's like the structure of those workouts, if there's threshold type workouts?
If I was just doing threshold, I like just like keep it simple. A lot of like mile repeats in there. One of the things that I really liked and seemed to work well this fall, I did a few workouts that were, we're just talking like 2 or 3 of these where I would do like a mile or a kilometer on at like a close to like marathon pace, like close to like, maybe a little under marathon pace, threshold type. And then I would back off for the next kilometer or mile, but not back off too much. So I'd still be running like, 5:50 or 6 minutes a mile, which I thought made a lot of sense because like you're surging and then you're going back to what essentially was going to be like my race pace for JFK. So the focus was to get really just like efficient. If I could like go a little bit harder and then back off and actually be recovering at what was going to be my eventual like JFK race pace, I thought that might work really well. And that was like, I think it's like a Renato Canova like marathon training workout that I'd done a few times when I was training for like CIM marathon back in like 2017. And I really liked those workouts and seemed to respond to them. So I did a couple of those and they went really well.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you really enjoyed thinking through what's going to happen. It's like your coaching brain turns on when you're like, I could imagine surging and then dropping back into the pace. It's kind of fun to hear you talk about it because you're like putting yourself in the moment and thinking like, what's going to apply? How can I incorporate that in training so I'm ready? It's kind of fun and cerebral.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in like that fitness is fitness. So like first thing you need to do is just get like as aerobically fit and as strong as you can, right? And then as you get closer to an event, you want to think more and more about like, okay, what are the specific demands for this event? So if I'm training for speed go, it's like, okay, I need to get really good at power hiking up 20% grades, like maybe with poles. If you're running JFK, well, I just need to get as efficient as possible at, sub 6 minute pace. So as you get in that, like those final like 5 weeks, you're trying to target those hard days, those workouts to the specific demands of the event.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really the key, and everyone overlooks it, like as far as like hitting vert numbers and stuff, whereas you could probably more efficiently just be more aerobically fit rather than commuting to the mountains to just climb up vert ahead of time.
Now like the overall, I like getting out on trails and doing the big vert days, but I've also found that like too much of that, I just, will get tired. I won't recover well. And it seemed to work really well for my like just building back to running economy to mix in like some of those bigger and slower mountain days with some more flat, fast runs. So I did way more of my long runs just like on, I wouldn't say I did many that were flat, but I did a lot of like rolling Vermont, like, dirt roads, which are still pretty hilly, but you can, like we were talking about, I think like a dirt road in Vermont is like as technical as half the trails out west.
Yep, totally. Yeah. How fast do you think you could run a mile right now with your fitness? Just guessing.
Mile is not an event I have often run, but I will tell you that I got those super shoes on the Tuesday, like last Tuesday, and I was feeling good. I just came back from Colorado, and I was like, okay, I want to do just a little bit more speed work and test out the super shoes eventually to make sure I wanted to race in them. So I went to like the local track here, just over the border in New York, actually, and I did like 3 times a mile at, starting at like around a threshold. And the first mile I ran like 5:20, like felt super relaxed. The next mile I like dropped like 5:08 and was like, okay, like this still feels like, like a threshold effort. And the last one I decided to push it a little bit. I think I did like a 447 or 448 mile, like feeling like I wasn't pushing that hard. So I could definitely run for sub 430 in a mile, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. And what's your marathon PR?
My PR came like, I think it was 2016. I ran 2 years in a row when I was in grad school in Flagstaff, the California International Marathon. And so my PR, I want to say, is like 2:16 and 20 seconds, or give or take. So yeah, I was a pretty fast marathoner. That was like probably the other time I was in the best shape at flat running in my life. It was
Totally.
I had that goal to get under, I think it was 2:18 at the time was the goal that everyone was setting to make marathon trials. So I put in a really good training block for marathons and ended up exceeding the 2:18 goal by a little bit of margin. So I definitely have thought about trying to run a marathon one more time, especially now that I've tried super shoes. It'd be fun to see if I can get under 2:16 with another marathon block. Some of my workouts, this like training block that were flat, were like right in line with what I did when I ran that marathon PR.
Wow. That's awesome. So now we have to go back to Jeff Mogavero for another story. Do you think that sitting in the hot tub as heat exposure or heat training helped with him as you guys walked around in your nice robes at your recent hotel during the U.S. training camp?
I don't think it hurt. So I know heat training has been like all the rage, especially for these long and hot ultras over the last few years. So it's been pretty interesting to watch that. Like we were just thinking back, I was talking with one of my buddies about in college, how in our ski training locker room we actually had a sauna, and the tradition was that you'd have the freshmen had to turn on the sauna at the start of every workout so that we'd have a nice hot sauna when we got back, and we'd usually do 10 minutes in the sauna post workouts. And we had no idea, just was a fun social thing to do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But turns out maybe that was part of our success in skiing, was that we were getting a heat training boost. So I started doing some heat training 5-6 years ago, and I read some of those studies about the blood plasma volume boost, and that how how at the time I was training in Vermont and doing going out to run Pikes Peak, things like that are at high altitude, and there's some evidence, right, that you turn on some of the same adaptation pathways that you get from altitude training by doing heat training. So that was the first times I ever played around with heat training. And then over the last couple years living at Sugar Bowl ski area in California, I was lucky enough to have essentially a private gym at night for through the school and the ski area there, and they had a sauna. So I did some hot tubbing and sauning just because it was fun, and it was like, hey, this might give you a little fitness boost.
Totally. Yeah. Do you do any other things complementary to running? Do you have a strength training routine or anything that you do?
Yeah, I do. I do a fair amount of strength training. Is one of the other things I think has helped this year with my background in Nordic skiing, that it's like an endurance power sport, so everybody spends at least twice a week in the gym and skiing. So I would get the high schoolers I was coaching the last 5 years and get them in the gym, and they'd be doing their ski strength training, and when I could fit it in, I would get in the gym and do a little bit with them. So I was doing strength all through last winter and into the spring, and then I actually took a break from strength training this summer, and I was focused on racing, but I think I lost quite a bit of strength. So one of the things I did as I reset and got into this training block, because I decided I was going to get a gym membership again, and I was going twice a week to the Stratton gym here in Southern Vermont, and I would get in there usually on the post hard workout days, and I would do a 45-minute just heavy lift, some squatting, some lunges, calf strengthening, and a few plyos. And they had a sauna in there, so then I would spend half an hour in the sauna. So yeah,
cool.
Twice a week I would do not super hard, but somewhat heavy lifting for 45 minutes with a half an hour sauna after that. And I don't, I think it helped.
Totally. And I think it's interesting, we're about the same age, but like the people we grew up seeing run would just run like 150 miles a week, and now volume's a little lower. But I think we've filled in the gap in training volume, at least the duration side, with these things like heat training or the gym as well. And I think it just makes a more well-rounded athlete rather than doing 20 hours of running a week. Do you think that holds up as well?
Yeah, I think like, there's always the temptation you see that people have success off like, running 120 miles a week in the mountains, and that's great that it works for them. But for me, I found that if I might be able to get away with it for like a very short training block, but I will end up overtrained and injured if I do that.
Mm-hmm.
So coming from my Nordic ski background, like we just for 2/3 of the year, you're forced to cross train in Nordic skiing. And I've seen like, right, all these World Cup athletes and incredible athletes that they're doing cross training, like, 2/3 of the time, and they're still like having all this incredible success. So I like believe in you can get fit off cross training, and I see like the gains that you can make in the gym. So I have been a little more focused on doing, a fair amount of my training is cross training, and definitely was incorporating some of the gym and supplementary work this year. So I
Totally.
get comments, quite a bit that we look at your mileage on Strava and it's like, not all that high compared to a lot of the other top ultra runners. And, that's just because I'm doing a good bit of cross training. So, and I find that I'll have more speed and more strength if I am continuing to get in the gym, get on the bike once or twice a week, or I was actually roller skiing a good bit more this year. So
Mm-hmm.
when my legs are really tired, rather than, you know, forced to go slog and maybe injure myself, like by running more mileage, I would just put on the roller skis and you can get a good aerobic workout, but actually like be using more your upper body and your core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not like the most fun, but I actually do sort of like roller skiing.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
talk to other like retired Nordic skiers, they probably will tell you that they never want to go on their roller skis again because they just spent so many like hours in college like, out there pounding the pavement. But yeah, it's been fun to do a little
Totally.
bit more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is like the ideal mileage that you run a week, just volume wise, running volume?
Yeah, I tried to not focus too much on the mileage until like a little bit later in this training block, but I did a lot of probably like mostly in the 50 to 80 mile a week range. But if you look at the total volume, including you know the a little bit of biking, a little bit of roller skiing, and the gym time, I was probably up at you know 20 20 hours of training most weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So just a couple more questions. I'm curious how this will be like the first full year you're a pro athlete. How do you schedule or decide what you want to race? Because I bet you want to do it all now that you have more time.
Yeah, it's like that double-edged sword of like, it was nice in the past because I had all the coaching and other life commitments about like, most of the winter I just couldn't race because I was going race to race being a coach, and I'd jump in like a local ski race when it fit. So I kind of had that winter just build base and strength on skis and in the gym. But this year I'm planning to do like a full skimo season. Like do like, half the World Cups, go to US Nationals. And then there's like all these running events that I want to do and actually like, have the flexibility to do a little more running racing in the fall and spring rather than just kind of focusing my season on more the summer. Um, so I have a lot of different goals. So it's gonna be hard to try to prioritize. So I got to make sure I don't do too much racing. I like to race, so for me, it just ends up being I need to decide what the A goal races are and not have too many of those. And then I can pick 2 or 3 races where they're like B or C level goals. And so that means that I'm not as worried about being in completely top shape for them. And, you might just kind of train through and use it as like a hard race, hard workout, even though you're jumping in a race and putting a bib on. And I think it's like, probably better often than doing a hard workout is putting the bib on, going through the motions, practicing those race day nerves. But yeah,
Yeah.
some people have a hard time doing that because like you might get beat by a bunch of people that you don't want to get beat by. But yeah, I like to race, so it's okay to get beat every once in a while.
Yeah. What if you do just the most well-rounded, unique running schedule where you do like Black Canyon, Western States, OCC, and then CIM for your running next year? That would be like the coolest, most comprehensive race list.
Yeah, I got to think about it still. I haven't like fully committed to too many races, but those are 4 that are a little bit on my radar. I think I'll definitely do either. I haven't decided yet, OCC or CCC. I'm thinking a little bit about this, like try to do Black Canyon and get a golden ticket, but I might think better of it. If I don't do that, I'll probably end up doing Broken Arrow again. Maybe see if I can get a spot on the world's team.
Cool. Yeah. Are you able to announce anything on a sponsor or yet?
I don't know if I'm supposed to like officially announce anything, but you may have seen that I was wearing a craft kit, even though I wasn't in their shoes at JFK. So I've been in negotiations with them. I've tried a bunch of their shoes at this point, and yeah, I'm hopeful it's going to work out.
It's great that you're finally getting noticed and everything. What's next through the winter?
I'm just going. The next big thing will be the Skimo Nationals out in Utah in early January. So I'm very excited to get on snow here. Currently like 38 degrees and raining here in Vermont, but maybe some mountains have started blowing snow. So I'm hoping to get on snow as soon as possible. In the meantime, I'm like, going to be running and biking and practicing my ski transitions inside. If we don't get snow soon, I'll probably end up going back out to Colorado so I can get on snow and do some altitude training before Skimo Nationals. And then
Totally.
Need to decide about, I'm going to try for a golden ticket, but otherwise I'll be trying to get some starts for the World Championships for ski mountaineering are in Switzerland at the beginning of March. And I was actually just talking with Jeff Mogavero earlier today, and we just said we're going to team up for the Pyramenta, like one of these grand course skimo races with a partner. It's like 4 days in I think Switzerland or something. It looks really, really cool. So I got to go read up more about it.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks again for joining.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jeff.
All right. Thank you for listening to this bonus episode with David Sinclair. Awesome guy. Let's share this around, uplift the community, hopefully get the guy something. He's just so talented and so kind. So hopefully you got some good stuff out of there. Happy Thanksgiving, whether you're doing something or alone or whatever. Hopefully the bonus episode this week is nice. I think I just have a soft spot for this holiday because ever since my grandparents passed away, just hasn't been the same. So maybe more entertainment. So with that, guys, 5 stars anywhere. If you share this around, it'll really help the podcast blow up. We're getting some great guests. And really fun announcement either tomorrow or Friday on that episode. So with that, guys, stay elite, my friends.